Okay, hello guys, welcome back. We have a great new addition to our Brew Craic podcast. Today we have two influential guests, Sarah Cleaton and Dr. Christina Wade. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and how I came upon you. Maybe starting with you, Sarah, because you were the first one I came to know.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Cleaton, and I finished my master's last year at Trinity College Dublin, and I did the program Digital Marketing Strategy, and I finished my thesis, and it's a mouthful. The title is a mouthful. It is How Millennial Women in Ireland's Attitudes Towards Craft Beer Are Influenced by Social Media. So I wrote that last year, and I did pretty well on it, and I ended up getting a first, and I've been sitting on it. I didn't know what to do with it, but I was very proud of the results that I had and the research that I did. I was very, I really loved the work that I did with it. And so I think in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown, I didn't really know what to do. So I just tweeted it out there to the universe and said, hey, does anybody in the craft beer community, would you be interested in this? And I ended up getting a better response than I anticipated. I thought maybe one person would pity like it and say, sure, I'll read it, but I had enough. And Joan tweeted me and she asked if she wanted to read it, sent it to her, and then she asked me to come on here and talk about it. But essentially, I could talk about the thesis really quick. Boiled down to my elevator pitch, it's a qualitative thesis researching how social media impacts and influences consumers, and specifically millennial women living in Ireland. So not necessarily just Irish women, but women in the millennials that live here. So yeah, that's it.
Well, it was interesting because my background is probably design and marketing that I came across, and I'm quite new to the brewing industry myself. So it was quite interesting that I came across yourself, Sarah, and especially that the title of your thesis. I was like, wow, this is great, because it was really interesting for me. And then, of course, that's when I suggested to do you guys to come on and do this edition of Brew Craic, and that's when you suggested Christina yourself. And basically, Christina, I know you've been in the brewing industry probably a bit longer than us. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how you got into it and your background. And I believe you're the president of a particular society, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I am originally from the US. I co-founded a beer group in Washington, D.C. with my best friend, Alicia Gilreath, and she's still over there taking over and doing amazing things, and I'm so proud of her. So, Alicia, hi! And we started that in 2009, and that was Alicia's idea, and I just, supported her and helped her kind of grow that. And then I moved over here to do my master's. And after 1 year of my master's, all my friends' master's program left to go back to their respective countries, and I had no friends. But I was staying to do my PhD here, and so I said, sure, why not? I'll start a beer group here, and maybe we'll get 10 members, and maybe that'll be 3 friends, and that'll be great, 3 friends.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just snowballed from there. Now we have Sarah, 1,300 members, something like that. We're a very international group, so we have members from 6 continents, any country. I mean, not any country, but so many different countries, so many different languages. People who, English is their 3rd and 4th language. People who don't really speak that much English. I don't speak too many other languages myself, so it's nice we can all kind of bond over, I like this, the kind of universal language of beer is something that kind of unites us all together, and it's quite a diverse group, and I just think that's really wonderful.
And I'm correct in saying it's entirely women, or yeah.
Right. So we do mixed events. We absolutely have mixed events. But we're women-centered and women-focused because we want to support women within the industry. We want to make sure that we have a safe space for them. We want to make sure that we are supporting and encouraging them, that we are a place where they can come to learn about beer if they want to, but they can also just drink beer and be like, hey, I like this. I don't really need to know too much about it. I just know that I like it, because that's enough and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a super beer geek. I have a BJCP, I'm a BJCP certified beer judge. Like, I'm total beer nerd. But that's me. That's a personal, thing. It's totally okay to just be like, hey, I like this beer. Because, sometimes I'm like that too. I don't really feel like I need to analyze every beer every time I drink it.
Exactly.
This is good. I don't care if it's in style. I just like it.
I am not a BJCP judge, and I've thought about it, but it's, but the nice thing about the group is we accept everyone. I was always made to feel welcome and included in conversations. And if I had a question, nobody made me feel stupid for asking really big stuff. And
that's really important. Like the core ethos of the group is to like form friendships and to make that space, particularly for people who are new in town or who are looking for those friendships. So we really, really facilitate and emphasize kindness and just relaxed environment and safe to enjoy beer. And we have people come and go, listen, I don't like beer, but apparently this is a big deal now. So can you tell me what beer I should be drinking? And then we do the rundown. Do you like coffee? Do you like red wine? And then we try to pull beers that we think that they might like. So that's kind of what we do when we do brewery tours, beer dinners, and we brew beer ourselves, and whatever we can do, we do it.
Brilliant.
And ever since the coronavirus situation has occurred, we've had every Saturday Zoom meetups. Now it's every other Saturday, because I think as it drags on, people are tired of Zoom.
This is
It's been great. Like, we've had a group of regulars and some new people coming in every week, and it's not it's just a lot of fun. Like, I'm like, this is the best decision I've ever made, was joining this group, because I've made some of the best friendships I've ever had here through this society.
And if someone wants to get involved, like myself, how do I go about doing that? Like, I'm in contact with you guys now, so it might be a little bit easier for the likes of myself. But for someone maybe who's watching this video, how do they they're interested in getting involved with some of the events or the activities that you guys are doing in the Ladies Craft Beer Society? How do they get involved?
Yeah, well, firstly, it's totally free, so you can just rock up to anything.
Okay.
There's no cost. There's no membership fees. Just come along. So we're on Twitter, and you can follow our events on Twitter, but I highly suggest joining Meetup. We're on Meetup, and when we have events where there's limited spaces, we do the RSVPs through Meetup, of course, to keep track of everything. But there's no membership fees. The only time anything costs anything is if it costs something from the venue that we're going to. We don't charge anything.
Well, we don't make anything. We do this for the love of craft beer and the community and the friends. That's why we do it. And
I guess that meetup will probably be great now for probably when we're reintroducing to bars and
life, society.
That'll be great. We might have minimum numbers and restrictions on that, so that'll be great. So other questions I have for you guys. Dina, in your experience, have you come across a stigma about women who drink beer and in general in the brewing industry? If you have, can you maybe inform us a little bit of what you've come across and maybe discuss a little bit further?
Yeah, so on one hand, I, along with Sarah and two other executive team members, run the Beer Ladies. And then on the other hand, I have a doctorate in history, and so I'm actually writing a book on the beer history of Ireland from medieval to modern. And I'm not going on a tangent, I promise. This is important. So, and what you kind of see throughout sort of Irish history is women really heavily involved in brewing beer and drinking beer, and then they're slowly pushed out. And women drinking beer, particularly in public, becomes really, really not the done thing. And so this kind of stereotype of women particularly not drinking pints, not drinking beer in Ireland, is something that becomes quite pervasive, and something that women, of course, protested. We have the famous protest at bar where a group of feminists went into a bar and they all ordered brandy, and they were served their brandy, and then they all ordered pints of Guinness, and they were refused service, so they drank their brandy and then they left as a protest to not being able to be served pints. And now we're thinking, okay, but Christina, that was the 60s. What about now? And you still see it quite prevalently now. So not so much in Ireland at this point, because people know me because I like to go to a lot of different bars. So it doesn't really happen as much here, because the craft beer community is quite small and really inclusive here. But definitely when, if I go to the US, my husband and I will be somewhere and my husband will order, whatever, and I'll order whatever. And they'll talk to about beer to him, but he doesn't know anything about beer, by choice. He's just not interested. He is one of the, Christina, just tell me what I like and, pick it for me. But yeah, you kind of get that. And then there's been a couple bloggers who talk about women who drink beer are unfeminine, and like being feminine is, of course, the be all end all for womanhood, which is, of course, so reductionist and sexist. I'm not even going to go there. But or that, women do things to be attractive to men, which is also not true. We do things because we just like them. Yeah. But yeah, so there's definitely a stereotype, and of course we get comments like, "Oh, you should start a dating service." We've definitely had comments from men about beer ladies starting a dating service, which is like,
had men show up at our events that are specifically labeled as for women, and then you'd be nice, and it's like, okay, well, you're here, you can't say go away, but then they expect it's like it's a dating service. I don't understand why they do that, but
yeah, that's strange. Definitely.
And then there's the kind of gatekeeping kind of stuff that, Sarah and I will kind of vouch for, that you can kind of get people, oh, you like beer? Okay, what kind of beer? What's an IPA? Why is it called an IPA? Oh, do you like dark beer? Do you like a stout? Do you drink stout? What kind of stouts do you like? What's a Baltic Porter? That kind of like pop quizzy gatekeeping thing, but you find that in everything.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I will say, in Ireland, I don't really get that very much. Here, it's very like, you like beer? I like beer! Yay! Let's come drink beer. Yeah, but definitely more so got that for sure.
But there definitely is, there's a lot more women who drink, maybe very trendy as of in the last 3 years, is your gin and tonic. So I think that, if more knowledge and more education and more of an awareness of craft beer, I think more women would definitely drink it. I don't know if that's your beliefs, and I think like your society and your thesis, Sarah, are brilliant ways to showcase that knowledge. What can be done to encourage more women to get involved in the craft beer industry, or to get involved in trying and tasting and drinking craft beer?
I think a lot of it comes down to creating an atmosphere of inclusion and welcoming, and making the space for us at the table.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I find, when you were talking about awareness, I found in my focus group that it was a range of women who do drink craft beer and women who don't. But the ones who didn't drink craft beer, and they were your, typical gin and tonic drinkers, it was a lack of awareness. So I would say within their social networks as well, on online social networks, if they don't see their social networks consuming certain things like craft beer around Ireland, then maybe they're just not aware of it. They don't acknowledge it. It's just not in their headspace to go to the shop and buy it, or go to the pub and buy it. They'll just stick to what's in their habits. A lot of this comes down to habits as well. But yeah, I think ease of access as well. If someone were to go to their local pub and they finally see something new, something that's brewed down the road or in the next county over, and it's behind the bar, then maybe they'll want to buy it then. They'll want to try it just to have something different. But if it's not there, then they won't think of it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, definitely about opportunities, like making, as Sarah said, making space at the table, and making sure that when I say you're including them in your marketing. So that doesn't mean you're marketing to women, because typically when people start marketing beer to women, it becomes a sexist mess. But just remembering that you're not just marketing to the sort of stereotype of what people think a craft beer drinker is. And this goes to including other groups besides women, so other minority groups that we really should be including and making space for at the table. It's just kind of expanding what that idea of this craft beer drinker is, and it's not this 20-something hipster white guy with flannel and a beard. It could be anyone.
Yeah.
And just remembering that when we're brewing and when we're having events, and just kind of making that space for people, which means maybe having events or bringing beer to places that we wouldn't really normally typically think that we should bring beer to, and just kind of making those new opportunities.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out, like you mentioned about marketing towards women. Well, what never works, we've seen this time and time again with any craft brewery, is when you directly market towards women, it's very gender specific. It's going to turn a woman off more than if you had just done it a little differently.
Thought about it more, it's inclusive,
Yeah, I had found in my focus group, they had even brought it up without any prompting. Certain craft breweries, the couple they had mentioned in the United States, that used names and language within the marketing of a craft beer product that was sexist, that was directly towards a woman, and it just completely turned them off of not just that product, but the brand itself. So, I found in all my research that, like, really what a craft brewery should do, well, this is what I think, but it's think about the wider picture. And it's like Christina says, it's not just it's not 2010 anymore, you guys. It's not some 25-year-old white guy wearing flannel and having a beard and drinking craft beer and thinking he's cool. It's everybody's doing it. Everybody's drinking it. My in-laws are drinking it, and they live in the middle of nowhere in Roscommon. Like, good
time for me because it's Friday and I'm finished work, I'm gonna try this one. We had this up on our social media earlier in the week. So there you go. I have to say I'm still learning a lot about craft beer. I'm quite new to it. So I would agree with you both in that it needs to be marketed towards two women, but as well as men. It needs to be inclusive and not just one.
Yeah, like as well as there in a world of like infinite amounts of art and creativity, there's just so many ways to make your beer interesting and exciting to everybody.
Yeah.
To anyone, and you don't have to kind of pigeonhole yourself into things. But like as Sarah said, like the quickest way to turn off women from your beer is to have sexist marketing at all. It is mostly across the board. Women won't buy any of your beer then. Just none of it. It's just done.
There's no excuse for it anymore at this point. I just don't understand why it sometimes still happens. And like, do you not run this by several people?
Yeah, because it almost becomes cheap and tacky.
It's a gimmick. And it's a gimmick, and it's under the whole premise of any publicity is good publicity. But I disagree with that concept. I mean, it can totally backfire.
Well, the thing is, like, from an academic perspective, they have done several peer-reviewed studies from like the 1980s and earlier that show that men perceive women who drink beer as more sexually available than women who are drinking the beer perceive themselves. And then this snowballs into harassment and those kind of things. And then, contributes to rape culture. And I have a whole list of sources if anyone is actually interested in reading more about that. I haven't just made this up. And so my thing is, when you're putting something kind of sexist and particularly sexualizing and objectifying women on a can, you're sort of reinforcing this idea of women who drink being sexually available, and of course this could have these consequences. And so my thought process is, even if it only contributes like 0.0000000 like 1%, why would you take that risk? Like, I don't understand why you would take that risk, why you would put that on a can, when again there's so much art and so many amazing designers.
Yeah, really are.
Why would you take that risk? And it's the same thing with racist or transphobic or ableist stuff. You're just reinforcing these ideas, and it's 2020. We don't really need to shouldn't be having these conversations anymore. Sarah and I have been having these conversations with people for years and years and years, and it's like, why are we still talking about this? Like, this should be known now. Just stop it.
Yeah. And from a marketing perspective, it's how a consumer views your product positively or negatively on social media, like on the interwebs. It will negatively or positively influence what they put out there in the universe about your product, and you don't really have any control over that. So I just think that, like, sometimes breweries need to think twice or 3 times or 4 times before they create something and put it out there in the universe, because who are you marketing it towards? Who's your consumer audience? Who are you not considering, and why? And think about it from more than one perspective, because it all fits into one big piece. And how a consumer views your product, and then they put that back out there. We all retweet, we all take pictures and tag it on Instagram and Facebook and put it on stories. It matters. And so if somebody says something negative about your beer, and it's because of something like this that is so easily avoidable, you only have yourself to blame.
And speaking from a marketing perspective, what, like, do you have a few examples maybe of beers in Ireland or breweries in Ireland that are doing it right? They're doing an amazing job. Like, I can think of a few off the top of my head that are brilliant in their labels, their artwork, and their marketing. Maybe you have a few from the top of your head that you think are good, and even that create amazing beer as well, because that is what it's all about.
See, like, I have been really loving the surge of the cans now. So, because I like cans, they're not as heavy, they're easily recyclable. So I've been a sucker for the cans and the new designs in the cans. Of course, like, Trouble always has really good marketing. Always been a big fan of Trouble, and I'm a sucker for neon. So any brewery that puts neon on the can, I'm buying it, and then I'll figure out what it is later.
I think Galway Bay Brewery, always, to me, I just like the way it's a solid option all the time. Like, you're not really going to go wrong with Galway Bay Brewery, and they have a very cohesive branding and message, and they're just a standby. Like, you can trust them for having good beers and coming out with some really cool things as well.
Yeah, my husband really likes Galway Bay. Rascals has a really cohesive branding strategy. I like Rascals branding. It's bright. It's modern. It's nice. I like Rascals branding.
Yeah, I went on a tour now. This is before COVID, and just when I started, and we visited Whiplash. They have some amazing artwork on their cans.
Yes, how could we forget about Whiplash? I love Whiplash's artwork. I think it's really interesting. It's pretty. Like, they actually took the time to really think about what they're putting on the can, and then they kind of have everything kind of goes together with their, like, aesthetic with the white cans and then the artwork on it. I do like. And
I believe their designer displayed in the Tate in London, their labels and their cans. Wow. So that's pretty impressive.
That is huge.
Some others, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Hope have some really bright and colourful
Yes.
labels, great beer as well.
Oh, I love Hope.
We love Hope. I live really close to Hope as well. I love supporting them because they're close to me, and I really like. It's a really cohesive message as well. Like, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate it. I know I do as a consumer. I know when I did my thesis, my results from my focus group, that across the board, everybody really appreciated it when a craft brewery tied in to the local area somehow. Like, location really mattered. For instance, when you're traveling, I know I pull open Untapped and I'll look to see what the top beers are. The first thing I do when I plan a trip now is look up craft breweries in the area, so I know what to look for when I go into a bar. I want to drink, like, we were supposed to be in Toronto right now. I had looked up all the breweries in Toronto. I was going to try. I knew the bars. I was like, I really want to try that beer and that beer, because I don't want to go to Toronto, or I don't want to go to wherever I'm going and drink a pint of Guinness or a pint of Heineken. I want to try something that's from that area. And it really matters to consumers, these ones that I talk to anyway. And I think it matters to a lot of people who are in the craft beer community or dipping their toe in, or even if they don't know anything about it, but they're traveling and they want to try something local, because it makes them feel like it enhances their experience, and it really ultimately enhances the overall craft beer experience. So I think that's important. And it's really cool when you see that come across from in branding, from like the story of the company, the people behind the brand, all the way into the names and the labels. And if you can see that they're using local distributors and seeing it in the local pubs, everything, it's a whole process.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And I just to touch on Hope, because I love that they have their sort of mythos, like their historical figures from like the area, and then they've named the beer after that. Of course, I'm a historian, but that just sucks me right in. I'm there. I will buy that beer. I love the story. And it's the same thing. Trouble does that as well. So, for example, their pumpkin ale, which they've been brewing, they grow their own pumpkins, and so then they make that. And I love that kind of, we grew this, and then we tried this, and Wicklow Wolf is doing their own hops, and they have their look. Like, I love the kind of, we're trying to grow this ourselves, and here's this big story that we've made around it, because people really, as Sarah says, we really do like those stories. People want those stories.
They want to feel like they're a part of it as well, on the consumer end, and watching a beer be made, brewing from the process, from say that Trouble picking the pumpkins, brewing the beer, who's brewing it, and like packaging and all the way, and then feeling like you're a part of that story as well. And that kind of lends itself to, actually, I watched your last podcast, and what was his name, Zach from the Hop Farm? He was talking about transparency and authenticity. Those things are so essential to how a consumer will view your brand on social media. It's so essential, and it really positively or negatively, depending on how well you do it, can influence whether or not they share within their social networks user-generated content. So basically taking a picture of a beer and tagging you in it and saying, hey, this is really good, or tagging you in Untapped or whatever. It's the whole package that breweries need to think about. It's not just one little thing.
A little slogan we have is farm to glass, so it's kind of that kind of concept in mind.
Yeah. People love that. That's one of the things I can think of. Some to mind is we did a tour of Breton Brewery, and their farm is centuries old, and so we went and did the tour, and then they had converted a farmhouse to their sort of tap room there, and they were telling us the stories of the farm and the historical things that it has seen. And I will always buy beer from Breton Brewery because beer is good, but also because I remember that story. So every time I drink it, I think of all the stories that farm has seen, all the history that farm has seen. And Ballykilcavan as well. That's an centuries old farm, and I love just kind of following along to see now what, where they're changing and what they're building up, and all of their restoring this old farm, and just, it's amazing. And I love that story. Like Sarah said, we like to go through that story. And that's something that the beer ladies at events, the women constantly talk about. They like that story. They want that story. They would rather give their money to someone they feel like they know, because it's, your man up the road who's been, doing this and doing this. And I've seen him, and I think it's been fermenting now for 2 weeks, and so it should be ready here soon. Like Sarah said, you feel more of a part of it.
Brilliant. And I think, we've covered a lot. I think there's some really good topics and discussion points in our chats today. Christina, I know you have a blog, because I was on it, and there's some really interesting content on there. Maybe you want to give it a shout out you did mention you're really interested in history and beer, so maybe you want to give it a shout out.
Yeah, so my blog is Brachytrix, and I will hopefully have my book out here soon, and so that will be Irish history from about 500 to now.
Cool.
So.
Okay, well then, if there's anything else you would like to add?
I would just say, if you want to find us, our Twitter, the Beer Ladies, it's at Beer Ladies IRE on Twitter.
Brilliant. And I believe you run that, Sarah. You run all the
social media. I do. Well, it's in my part-time, so like when I can do it. Sometimes it dies when I'm really, really busy. But yes, I am there. So if you message, I'll be the one answering.
Lovely. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks very much.
We'll keep tuning into these. We'll be bringing you interviews with some of the best hop suppliers, some of the best maltsters, and some of the best brewers from across the world. Now, while you're at it, log on, follow our Instagram, follow our Facebook, and follow our Twitter to get the latest updates on what we're up to and what our suppliers are up to and what our customers are up to. Cheers.